Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are recording today, the Wurundjeri, Wairarong and Bunurong people of the Eastern and Greater Kulin Nation. We pay our deepest respect to their elders, past and present, and we extend that respect to all First Nations peoples, and we honour that their sovereignty was never ceded to begin with. We acknowledge that their enduring and unbroken connection and contributions, their storytelling as well as their continued fight, their deep understanding and commitment and continuous care for country, lands, waterway, sky, culture and communities. We stand with them in their ongoing calls for truth-telling, treaty, sovereignty, justice, land rights and reconciliation. This was, and always will be, Aboriginal land. Imagine this, a tiny, overcrowded hospital, second of its kind, but that's for another time, located in a house in a dusty colonial frontier outpost in 1848. Patients lying on wooden planks, scent of disinfectant and horse dung mixing in the air, as well as the faint ring the town's first church bells echoing through what would one day become a bustling CBD. From its rough yet ramshackle beginnings, came an institution that would one day evolve, expand, and eventually anchor one of Australia's most advanced medical precincts, Royal Melbourne Hospital. But the road there is long, chaotic, and downright fascinating at the same time. Before we begin, quick heads up. Today's episode contains references to historical medical practices, surgical procedures, and the treatment of women in the 19th and 20th centuries. That may be confronting to some listeners and viewers. So if this is not the right time for you, I completely understand, as well as your well-being comes first. And please consider either to pause, skip, or check out one of the lighter episodes. Yet, if you do choose to go with this episode, as always, remember, please, to listen and watch with care. Welcome to Down the Yarra, the podcast that takes you on a deep dive into the heart and soul of Naarm-Melbourne and South Central Victoria. Whether you're a local or just curious, this podcast is for you. Hey, I'm your host, Andy. Today, we're taking you down to the city's most transformative medical journeys from a single modest hospital on Lonsdale Street, to the sprawling Parkville precinct that we know it today. So before we dive right into the episode, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, and follow us over on Podbean, as well as all of our socials for more fascinating and yet downright bizarre tales of old Naarm and across South Central Victoria. That being said, let's get into it, shall we? Well, our story begins in 1848, what is now the corner of Lonsdale and Swanston Street Walks, the CBD. The same site where QV Complex now stands today. So back then, Naarm-Melbourne was a fleeting colony of barely 20,000 souls. Dusty streets, no sewage, yet plenty of disease. The Melbourne Hospital started off small, with about 50 beds, a handful of doctors, and some rather terrifying equipment for the time. Remember, this was drugs, pre-antibiotics, and pre-sterilisation. So, not a great time. But then, the medical staff relied heavily on brandy, luck, and a very sturdy hand. This was where the colony's first great medical challenges were faced. Epidemics of typhoid, cholera, and smallpox swept through, testing the limits of both the hospital and its brave staff. Many of the city's early surgeries, i.e., amputation, childbirth complications, and experimental treatments, actually happened right here, behind the grand bluestone facades. But back in the late 19th century, Naarm-Melbourne had ballooned in size. The hospital site in the CBD was busting at the seams. The was overcrowded, and patients sometimes were sleeping on the verandas outside. Prior to 1916, the decision was made to relocate and rebuild the Melbourne Hospital at its current site in Parkville, near the University of Melbourne. And in 1916, it officially opened its doors to the public. What we now know as the Royal Melbourne Hospital in Parkville precinct. It marked its turning point in medical history for a city, moving from its makeshift colonial care to as a modern institution. The new hospital site introduced state-of-the-art wards, research labs, and teaching facilities that would lay the foundation for the University of Melbourne's medical school partnership. By 1935, it gained its royal patronage, hence becoming the Royal Melbourne Hospital, and quickly developed into the cornerstone of Australia's public health system from then on. Well, back to the location on Lonsdale and Swanston, in the CBD. The old Melbourne Hospital building didn't go to waste. Instead, it became something groundbreaking. The Queen Victoria Hospital for Women, founded and run by women for women. A key figure here was Constantine Stone, one of Victoria's very first female doctors and an outspoken advocate for women's health and education. At a time when women couldn't even vote, hospital offered not just treatment but also medical training opportunities for women, which was a revolutionary step towards gender equality at the time. It also provided maternal health care, mental health support, and outpatient services for working class women across the CBD. For decades afterwards, the Queen Victoria stood as a symbol of empowerment and resilience. It gave both hope and dignity for thousands of women previously been turned away elsewhere. By the 1980s, the Queen Victoria Hospital had aged beyond repair, and in 1986, most of the site had been demolished. But Central Tower and its iconic clock were preserved. The site would later become QV Square, a modern urban precinct filled with shops, restaurants, and apartments, blending both heritage and modernity in the heart of the CBD. Next door was the Queen Victoria Centre, which continued its legacy with health services, gyms, and offices, which stands in living tribute to a place that once held generations of Melburnians. Transformation of the block reflects Melbourne's constant reinvention. process, from hospital beds to coffee tables, from care wards to courtyards. The spirit of Melbourne's hospital still flows through the veins of the city today. In the Royal Melbourne, Queen Victoria Women's Centre, and even the Parkville Biomedical Precinct, now one of the largest medical research hubs in the Southern Hemisphere. What began as a tiny colonial infirmary has grown into the citywide network of medical excellence that it is today, symbolising how Naarm-Melbourne has always had and continues to adapt, but yet never forgets its roots at the same time. Next time on Down the Yarra, we step across the road to one of Naarm-Melbourne's most iconic institutions, the State Library of Victoria. From the Gold Rush archives to colonial scandal sheets and Ned Kelly's armour, as well as modern exhibitions. It's not just a library, it's a living time capsule of the city's mind, and once known as the Melbourne Museum. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe right here on YouTube. And follow us on Podbean and across all our socials for more journeys into Naarm-Melbourne and South Central Victoria's hidden past, present, and so on. And if you want a deeper dive into the city's early hospitals, check out our Season 2 companion episode on the Parkville Precinct, available over at Podbean. As well, as always, I'm your host, Andy, and remember, in Naarm-Melbourne and across South Central Victoria, history is never far beneath the surface.